this next section, what we really want to do here is dive into a lot of the rules that we've built up around our movement. It's so important that you start breaking the rules around your lower back and your movement, because they are going to free your life back up again. Like we talked about in our break free section, a lot of the things that people think they need to be doing or they should do or the cause of their pain are all filtered into how they think and then what they do with their problem. It all impacts the actions that we take, and a lot of it is just bloody unnecessary clutter. And when it comes to our movement, if we have so much confusion with our movement, what we're going to find is we're going to limit our chances of helping our recovery, because movement is life, movement is everything, movement is the currency of the human body. And our movement and what we do and how we do it can have a massive impact on our pain and on our ability to function and live our life better. So many people get so bogged down trying not to have pain that they forget about living and doing things and enjoying things. And actually the shift of focus away from pain, and particularly trying to protect against pain with movement or limit pain with movement, and getting back to actually doing stuff and figuring it out with a sense of curiosity and optimism again, is going to make a massive difference. Working with a lot of people there recently who've had long-term back issues, and they have so many rules built up around their back and their pain and trying to avoid it, that they're often in a state of doing nothing and going nowhere and procrastinating and getting loads of treatments that they just don't need to be getting, because a lot of the treatments aren't breaking them out of that overprotective cycle or fixing a lot of the functional issues they're having with their movement. In fact, I go so far as to say so many people just bloody give up, and they think that they're just going to get more of the same when they go to seek help for a long-term back issue. And I really want you to know that, like, my passion with all of this stuff, it comes from giving people that chance of long-term change, of getting out of that protective cycle and then decluttering and actually getting back to feeling good in their body again. You know, I think rules around movement are a really bad idea, and we've seen that over the years in the research, and also we've seen that it's not very helpful for people to get better. So a lot of the rules that people get come from bad advice and bad experiences. So someone who has like a significant episode of pain, and I was working with a lady and she had a significant episode of sciatica. A couple of years ago, had kind of gone through like a really difficult and terrible time. Work and life and sleep and everything had been massively disrupted. And she'd kind of come through a rehabilitation process and strength training, and she'd been, you know, this is kind of another buzz thing we have with low back rehab, is that just, you know, get stronger and your pain will go. It's not that simple, like, and we'll talk about that as we go. Like, strength is important, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But she'd done all the strength training, the squats, the lunges, the deadlifts and all the stuff. But when she came in to see me, one of the things that was really evident was that she had no confidence in doing normal basic movements. And all of her strategies were about protecting her back. And one of the things that we saw in our initial kind of assessment, and this is something that you can sort of analyze yourself, and these are things that you need to start looking out for, is that when she would pick something up, she was very hell-bent, didn't matter how small it was, that's just a 1 kilo weight, that she would be very supportive with her movement, very tense. So a lot of the times with her movement, she would brace her core. So she would tense her tummy, squeeze her glutes, and then bend in a very rigid way. And you can hear my voice and my breath changing. So we have breath holding. We then have tension, tightening of our muscles, consciously or unconsciously. And then what we have is a very limited movement strategy where there's not a lot of movement at the spine. And there's lots of stuff happening around the spine, but there's not a lot of movement. Now, as we saw in our last lesson, is that when we are using protective strategies around our back, oftentimes a lot of the work actually comes to our back. And another thing that she would do then was, when she did get to the point where she wanted to come back up, her movement strategy was to pull with her back to get herself up, rather than pushing with her legs and letting go of her back. So again, her strategy on the way down was to be very tense and guarded and protective, and the same on the way up, so that when she came back up, she would almost pull with her back first before she got up and wasn't able to let go and relax. And a lot of that had come from the advice and her training and trying to build up her strength, where she needed to engage her core, engage her glutes, engage her muscles. And that whole thing is a really bad idea when you're trying to get out of pain, because by engaging, you're not protecting your back. Okay, that can be very difficult for people to understand. And the second thing is that what you're doing is limiting your body, its natural variation or variability in movement. And this is a massive problem, because she still had functional deficits, no confidence or trust in her movement, despite having gone through the system and lots of treatment. And when we did dive into it, again, her strategy was just that she didn't want to flare up her pain, go back to a really bad experience that she had, and she was trying to prevent her problem from flaring up. But really what was happening was that she was limiting her ability to get better. So what we did very, very quickly into our sessions was that we started just to explore her ability to relax her back again and to let go and to allow some movement. And she was very surprised at how nice it felt to do that, and how good it felt, and how freeing it felt. Because if we think about the bending movement, like just putting a pair of socks on and a pair of shoes, and maybe it's getting your kids dressed, getting in and out of the car, like emptying the dishwasher, the washing machine, you have to be able to do that movement. And the thing is, right, so if I was to show you, like, if you think about this as the spine, right, this is bending forward and this is bending backwards. If you don't bend forward, right, what you do with the structures is you just compress them, right? So you limit space circulation, and then the nerves around that area become really peed off and irritated. So you're going to irritate the nerve, the structure that you're trying to protect, by not moving it. But when you open it and bend it and flex it, what you actually do is create space around the joint, allow circulation to come in, get some nice healthy movement through the disc and through the structures around it, and you build up the tolerance. And it's mad, because there's this mad belief that if you have a herniation, a disc bulge, that you need to be careful and avoid those movements. But really what those movements will do will increase the tolerance of that structure to be able to deal with life and with movement. Versus if you avoid bending your back, what you're going to do is just keep pushing on a very sensitive structure, and you're going to irritate the hell out of it. So if you've had a disc issue, or you can see that disc issue on a scan, or it's a bit sensitive, this strategy of not bending your back is going to be more provocative for that disc structure, rather than learning how to bend your back again, relaxing with your movement and letting go, learning to break the rules around your movement. And it's the equivalent, like if I was just to get my knuckle and just keep tapping it off the wall like for a couple of hours, the structure would become very sensitive. It wouldn't be damaged, but it'd be very sensitive and very irritated. But if I kept doing that, it would likely just continue to get worse and more uncomfortable. And that's what people do again with backs. A bit like the closed fist, they just don't allow the freedom of movement to come back. And that's a vital thing that you have to do to get out of pain, is to break the rules around protecting and engaging muscles so that you can actually break free. A lot of the rules, again, that would filter into people's lives, they just, everything becomes overcomplicated. So we would see things like sitting, and we'll dive into a real straightforward lesson on this as well. But when they sit, I can think of a guy I was working with, and when we met, he was like sitting on the edge of the chair like this. And this was his strategy to prevent his back pain. And this is something that he had been told. And a lot of this comes from the belief that your correct posture is going to fix your pain. But again, if we look at the strategy here, it's all about tension, and it's all about jamming those structures in. So basically what was happening there, when he would sit, he would become very irritated and very stiff after he got up for sitting for a prolonged period of time. A lot of people will have lumbar supports put in that hold him in the correct position. And really, that wasn't helping his back in any shape or form. In fact, the more he was doing it, the worse his back problem was getting. But because that's a belief that we feel that we need to do that, and that we need to have upright, correct posture, that can be very self-limiting for someone. So basically what we did with him was we asked him to feel what his muscles were like in that position, and they were very switched on and quite irritated. And then we just got him to sit back, where he could actually relax and use the back of the chair and switch those muscles off and have a nice sort of relaxed feeling in the chair again. But again, a lot of those things around sitting postures and positions, they often get emphasised as things that are going to help people's pain feel better. But really what they do is they're just more strategies to keep someone stuck in pain protection mode and overthinking their recovery. Another big thing is when people go to bed, is that they go to bed with the sort of the notion that when they're going to sleep, that this could be the thing that's going to hurt their back. So when they get into bed, they prop themselves up with countless cushions. They don't lie in a certain position, or they stop lying in their favourite position because they've been told probably, so many times people are told that if you lie on your tummy, it's going to like break your back or something. It's like, it just doesn't work that way. It's mad, the advice that people get about it. But again, going to bed and feeling unsafe as you get into bed and thinking that this is going to flare up your back, that's a problem, because you're in fight or flight stress mode and you're in overprotective overdrive in those positions as well. Another place where a lot of the rules would show up for people is that with particular activities, and for some reason we have this belief, okay, so this is the mad thing, is that somebody who has had a heart attack, right, cardiac issue, they'll often be told they need to build up their heart muscle to make it stronger and get it better. Versus people with back pain who have a back issue for a long time will often be told they need to protect the structure to make it better. Two massive contradictions and two opposite ends of the scale there in terms of, problems for people there. But the advice is so inconsistent. Really, with back issues, is that if you're avoiding an activity because your back is flared up by that activity, that is not the activity that's the problem. That's your preparation level to do that activity that's the problem. But so many rules filter in for people around their movement and their activity, where they're told that this activity is bad and this activity is good. So don't run on the roads, stop running on hard surfaces, go to the swimming pool and do something that's non-weight bearing. And that's fine if you're happy to do that and that's something that you want to do. But what a lot of people often find is that even though they're doing those things, the issues that they have maybe with weight bearing and with activities that they really want to do don't get any better, because we're moving ourselves away from the activities that we want to be able to do. We're going to dive into this a little bit more very soon, but really what we want to think about is preparation for our activity. And if we are someone who wants to get back to running and we've been told that we shouldn't run, I would challenge you to break those rules that you've been given and that advice, because basically what that's saying to you is that someone is predicting your future for you with absolutely no knowledge that that's going to be the case. And I was working with a guy, he was told that he shouldn't run anymore, he shouldn't do very heavy weight bearing activities because it would make his back pain worse. And this went on for years. So he had lots of treatment, loads of physio, he was on that road to injections and surgeries and stuff. And when we met him, really what was lacking was a mass amount of physical capacity to actually run, because he had deloaded so much, because he was told that this was bad for his back. And his rule was that he didn't do anything then that would place too much stress on his back. But really, by not placing stress and working the structures and building them up in a gradual way, his tolerance just continued to drop. So what we did was we worked on building capacity to get him back doing the thing that he wanted to do. And guess what? He's back doing that thing. And it takes time. The thing with physical capacity is that it's an investment. It takes time. But the longer you stay away from actually building up your body to do certain things, and that you adhere to those silly rules that tell you can't, then what you're going to find is you're going to break down each time you go back. And the thing for him was, when he would break down in the past, he wasn't breaking down because his back was letting him down. It was more because the structures and the strength and the preparation level around that, because he had been avoidant and overprotective, was so low that his body wasn't prepared. And then all of a sudden he would ramp up his sort of attempt to go back running, break down and lose more of that trust and confidence. But a lot of those rules, again, filter from that overprotective movement, and they filter into every facet of our life. So what we want to look at is, when we move, what are we thinking? Are we moving with the intention to protect our back, or are we just moving? Are we avoiding bending our spine, or using our spine? And do we have any overprotective habits that we would use to move? Like, do we do very do we hold our breath? Do we squeeze our glutes, tighten our core? what we want to do is be very aware where those things show up. And then with our activities, have we been told that we shouldn't do certain activities because they are bad for our back? And we need to park the advice that we've been given and look objectively at what we've done to prepare and get ready for those particular activities. And when we start to see a lot of those things coming together, I guarantee that what you're going to see is that there's a lot of opportunity for you to start building your physical capacity, to break away from overprotective movement and start getting back to the life that you deserve. And just as a last example, one of the things, I was working with a guy there recently, and one of the things that he would do with his back was that he would get really frustrated with his back. So when his back flared up, it had a massive limitation on his life. So his ability to exercise, his ability to deal with his stress, his ability to sleep, to sit comfortably, to work, all of those things were impacted by his pain. And what he was trying to do was to control every facet of it, have lots of rules around his back. So when he would just go down to pick up the dog bowl or to feed the dogs, he would be very rigid. When he would, try to empty the dishwasher, he would avoid rotation and bending. And guess what? When we started to introduce those things and break those rules that have been built up, he felt so much better. And that's because the human body doesn't do well with rules. We need to have opportunities. We need to have a curiosity with our movement so that we can actually make progress and free our movement, break free and move free within our body, and realize that a lot of the things that we're told that we shouldn't do and a lot of the rules that people think are going to help your back pain are actually going to inhibit your progress.